Ram Mondol is head of production at 4 Nombor Bhedi on the eastern fringe of Calcutta. Situated almost next to Calcutta's gleaming new sports stadium, 4 Nombor is a cooperative fishery started by local fish farmers. 314 people farm over 150 acres. Last year, they raised 4,000 quintals of fish. In 1986, Ranjit Mondol and 37 other fish farmers reclaimed a portion of the dried-out Nolbon fishery, abandoned by its private owners. Ranjit Mondol is a local political leader and was instrumental in the formation of 4 Nombor. Because of its political links, the cooperative has been allowed to raise fish on this land till the government requires it. The members of 4 Nombor acted in the context of growing unemployment resulting from the eastward expansion of Calcutta, represented by Salt Lake City and its stadium.
আমরা এখানে পলিটিক্যাল পার্টি হিসেবে একটা পরিচয় আমাদের আছে। এলাকার মানুষের সঙ্গে আমরা দৈনন্দিন মেলামেশা করি। বেকার সমস্যা প্রচুর আছে। যদিও বেকার সমস্যা আমাদের পক্ষে সম্ভব না সমাধান করা, তবুও আমরা ভাবলাম যেহেতু 4 নম্বর সমিতিটা শুধু পানা হয়ে পড়ে আছে 4 নম্বর ফিশারিটা, যদি আমরা এলাকার কিছু বেকার ছেলেদের নিয়ে পরিষ্কার করে মাছ চাষ করি, তাহলে মনে হয় সাময়িক হলেও কিছু ছেলেকে আমরা কাজ দিতে পারবো এবং তাদের দৈনন্দিন যেটুকু প্রয়োজন হয়তো আমরা মেটাতে পারবো। এরকম একটা আশা নিয়ে কিন্তু আমরা শুরু করি।
The Salt Lake Stadium is the crown jewel of Salt Lake City, Calcutta's new satellite township. The Eastern Metropolitan Bypass connects the township to the city. Today, over 100,000 people live in Salt Lake City, among imposing government buildings, public utilities and services. Conceived by Dr. B.C. Roy and built by all successive state governments, Salt Lake City represents the dominant consensus about Calcutta's future development. All of the 3,000 acres that this township is built on used to be fisheries and had been such for over 100 years. Of the 3,000, 1,500 belonged to a pioneer cooperative fishery, the Bidyadhari Spil Motshojibi Shomobai Shomiti. Formed in 1939 by the fish farmers of Dottabad and neighboring villages, the cooperative built its own secondary school, maternity center, brought roads and electricity to its members. In 1962, the land was taken over by the government. The other villages have disappeared, but Dottabad has resisted eviction from a strip of land next to the eastern bypass. The fisheries are gone. Though few farm the remaining small ponds, Dottabad's traditional life is shattered. Most of the men work as day laborers on Salt Lake City's construction sites. The women are maidservants in the apartment buildings. Some of the younger villagers have found jobs in the city. A few have got into small trades and sometimes into illegal ones. Those who continue as fishermen raise a small living from these ponds.
যেমন সরকার আমাদের উচ্ছেদ করে দিল, তখন আমাদের জমি 7 টাকা করে দিল, জমি 60 টাকা, শুধু 60, আর সেই জমি এখন লাখ লাখ 2 লাখ টাকা দাম হয়েছে, আর সরকার সরকার এখন তুলে দিচ্ছে আমাদের এখান থেকে। সেই জমি তারা কি করবে, সেই জমি এখানকে তুলে দিয়ে আমাদের বিক্রি করবে, সেই জমি বড় করে কারোয়ার মারোয়াতে বিক্রি করবে, ধরো আরও 4 লাখ 5 লাখেই বিক্রি করবো, কারণ মাটির দাম বেশি হবে, এটা বালি, এটা মাটির দাম বেশি হবে। তাহলে সরকার আমাদের তুলে দিয়ে কি করবে, উচ্ছেদ করছি। তা আমরা যাবো কেন, কিন্তু আমরা উচ্ছেদ হবেও বা কেন? আমরা যা 400 বছর বসতি, আমরা বাপ ঠাকুর তো আমাদের জঙ্গল কেটে বাস, আমাদের তার আমরা যাবো নি, আমরা যাবো নি, আমরা এই মোট কথা নেই বললে তো হবে, আমাদের নেই বলে কি আমরা আমার কি গরু নাকি যে হাট বলে হেঁটে যেতে হবে? আমাদের মানুষের তো আমার জন্যই আমাদের টুকি, আমরা সকলে বলে লড়বো, সকলে রক্ত মরে যাবো, কি আছে? এমনিও মরতে হবে, তেমনিও মরতে হবে, গুলি দিয়ে মরে যাবো।
These ponds they cling to are miniatures of the past. The resourcefulness of Charnombo's members and the uncertainty of their future are facets of an unusual conflict between Calcutta and its eastern hinterland. What makes it tragic is that for 60 years, instead of conflict, Calcutta and this country shared a relationship that seemed to be the ideal way for city and countryside to coexist. We are at the southern tip of Salt Lake City. The fisheries of East Calcutta constitute a major wetland system that ecologists have described as a unique urban resource. Calcutta's eastward expansion critically endangers this resource and raises questions about the basis of the growth of our cities. These fisheries and farms that still remain in the east embody a relationship between the city and the country very different from Salt Lake City. Early maps show that this entire region was a vast saltwater marsh, 81 square kilometers in area, and was called the Salt Lakes. The salt water in these marshes gathered here owing to the tidal behavior of the river Biddaturi, a channel between the Bay of Bengal and the Hooghly River. Bay tides brought seawater upriver, flooding and filling these lowlands. The open expanses of water led people to start saltwater fisheries. Further from the river and its channels, rice farming was the main occupation. This area was Calcutta's monsoon drainage basin, the terrain sloping downward from the city. Calcutta used the slope to advantage and channeled out municipal sewage into the Biddathari. And in 1868, constructed a light railway to dump the city's garbage on the edge of the marsh. The sewage and the garbage gave the history of this country a curious twist. By the late 19th century, the Calcutta Corporation had covered about 3 square kilometers of the salt lakes with garbage carried by the railway. As the garbage biodegraded to humus, the corporation leased out this acreage for vegetable cultivation. The corporation built a row of slim sewage-fed lakes to serve as irrigation tanks. These lakes are the first links of a 100-year-old tradition. The farms and fisheries of East Calcutta maintain the entire wetland system by recycling the city's sewage and garbage productively. These garbage farms are the major doorstep source of fresh vegetables in Calcutta's markets.
থাপা চাষের বিশেষত্ব হলো একসাথে অনেকগুলো চাষ হয়। তার মধ্যে প্রথমত কপি গাছ, এটা কপি গাছ, এটা কপি গাছ, এটা কপি গাছ, এইটা কনকা শাক, তারপরে এটা হচ্ছে মূলো, এটা হচ্ছে কুমড়ো, এইটা হচ্ছে লাউ। এবং এই লাউগুলো কপিটা কার্তিক মাসের প্রথম থেকে দ্বিতীয় সপ্তাহের মধ্যে তৈরি হয়ে যায় এবং তার আগেতে শাকগুলো 20 থেকে 22 দিনে রেডি হয় এবং তোলা হয়। 30 থেকে 35 দিনের মধ্যে এই মূলোটাকে আমাদের রেডি হয়ে যায় এবং 1.5 মাসের মধ্যে এই কুমড়ো গাছ এবং লাউ গাছ এগুলো বাজারে চলার মতো 1.5 হাত থেকে 2 হাতের মতো রেডি হয় এবং বাজারে রান করে। এইগুলো শেষ হওয়ার সাথে সাথেই কপিটা বাজারে যেতে শুরু করছে এবং তার মধ্যে আমাদের উচ্ছে গাছগুলো লাগানো থাকে। কপিটা যখনই শেষ হচ্ছে এবং উচ্ছেটা পুরোপুরি ক্ষেতটাকে কভার করে আবার উচ্ছে ফলতে শুরু করছে তার মধ্যে।
The act of man was joined by an accident. This lock gate is a relic of the river Biddathari. By 1904, owing to natural and man-made reasons, the headwaters of the Biddathari began to dry up. In 1928, the river was officially declared dead. The salt water receded, but the sewage still flowed down the Biddathari. The waning Biddathari had for some time caused the fisheries to search for an alternative source of water. In an act of survival, the fisheries turned to sewage, or sweet water as it is called. In the shallow lakes, the suspended solids moved to the bottom, leaving clear water on top. Under sunlight, the organic solids decompose and produce plankton for fish to eat and blue-green algae that release fresh oxygen into the air. The fish thrived in sweet water. Calcutta's sewage disposal is a carefully planned scheme of resource utilization. City sewers converge at several pumping stations strategically located on the city's eastern side. The sewage is pumped up from the sewers and out into canals that flow down the eastward gradient. The lock-gated Bangtola is the central point of a sewage irrigation system that covers an area of 8,500 acres. It is an active process. The special fishery channels are at a higher level than the main channels. When the fisheries want to increase their sewage inflow, they board up the connector. By taking the boards off, they reduce their intake. A widespread and intricate network of smaller and smaller channels distributes the sewage further and further from the main channels. The country picks up the distribution where the city's system ends. This combined network sustains the last remaining wetlands. The open expanses of water are the lungs that replenish the oxygen for Calcutta's 10 million people. The fisheries are the pivot of this system. To replenish the raw sewage in their tanks, the fisheries have to let out an equal volume of settled water. The rice farmers of East Calcutta utilize 3 sources of water: rainwater during the monsoons, sewage and fishery water throughout the year. They raise 2 crops of rice on this land. These links add up to a self-maintaining disposal system. The fisheries and farms lessen the volume of sewage and sludge in the municipal canals. When the canals dispose the sewage into the Kulti River, the sludge load is considerably reduced. This system turns the city-country relationship into symbiosis instead of conflict. The average Calcuttan can still afford reasonable year-round nutrition because of the farms and fisheries of East Calcutta. In the summer months, the wetlands are Calcutta's primary source of fresh fish. These fish and vegetable markets account for almost 20% of Calcutta's food supply. Can Calcutta do without them? In East Calcutta, relating to the waste is an act of survival. The 10,000 pickers from local villages, half of them women and children, pick the garbage clean of all inorganic components which are sold to city wholesalers. Everything is put to use. In the monsoons, even the garbage dumps are farmed over. The poor of this countryside also take on an immense urban problem, and through utilization, turn it to profit. Intersecting city and country, the Eastern Bypass is the cutting edge of the city's eastward expansion. "20,000 acres in 1960. More than half the wetlands have been urbanized. Only 7,500 acres remain. 1,200 acres adjacent to Salt Lake City are already earmarked for construction. 3,000 acres more are included in the Calcutta Metropolitan District. If these are urbanized, half of what you see would be gone. The wetlands would cease to be viable."
Basically, I would say this is at least one ecosystem. I don't know of any other example where we get simultaneously food, employment, and sanitation from the same system. And if we remember that in third world countries, these are the three basic needs that one has to provide. And in terms of any appropriate technology, I never know of such a brilliant example where simultaneously three things are coming up: food, employment, and sanitation. We do talk about solving the urban congestion problem by developing resource-efficient villages. But if that is true, we will also remember that we cannot really go ahead in urban expansion program at the expense of resource-efficient villages. This is what exactly we will be doing if we replace East Calcutta Wetland by some urban development.
You're going to have to go in for other technological means of pushing up your sewage, cleaning your sewage, and that kind of thing, because the entire system is designed to flow naturally to the east, right, and thereby into the river, right, and go through all the berries and the fisheries, etc., etc. Right, so you're going to have to invest in a big way, right, because technology costs money.
The Calcutta Corporation has already experimented with a sewage plant at Bantola, now abandoned. The fisheries work far better.
We don't have that management culture to run mechanical sewage treatment plants. This is one. And then, of course, we will lose the most advanced low-cost alternative for sanitation technology. We will lose the fisheries. And no wonder that we will also lose 20,000 and odd families earning through those fishery systems, and they will be displaced.
The location of important utilities and the construction of the East Calcutta Township at the southern end of the bypass means that the infrastructure for urbanization is in place. On either side of the bypass, the land has been acquired by the Calcutta Metropolitan Development Authority.
It is history that where you have a railroad, where you have a highway, right, you are going to have growth, right? And the entire eastern part of Calcutta has been elevated from what was considered a garbage dump and outlet for sewage to prime real estate because of the existence of the Eastern Bypass.
Ecologically, construction is the permanent change of land use. The rate of construction on urbanized land in East Calcutta makes you wonder where it will stop.
Theoretically, the entire East Calcutta area is under a notification that there can be no development because an outline development plan is being drafted by the CMDA, which represents the state government. So theoretically, that is not correct. It's not that chunks of land have been taken and given to real estate developers. No, that's not correct.
The corporation notice prohibiting land sales is not easy to implement.
But in practice, it has given a free rein to private developers so that they can create an atmosphere whereby they could hopefully make money in a big way later, and the smaller sharks who would today make money out of small little cooperatives or small little housing schemes which really have no sanction. The crux of the whole thing is that there is no protection.
It is a vicious cycle. The city expands, and in the process, displaces more people that the city must absorb. Salt Lake City is built by people displaced by the expanding city. Looking at the housing in Salt Lake City, you can see the considerations and compulsions that make Calcutta grow. Much of the construction is government utilities and lower and middle income group housing for employees the government could not afford to house inside the city, given the high cost of land. Some of it is allotted to housing cooperatives and single-family dwellings. The city can afford to grow only by expanding into the country. If Calcutta can ignore the grave social consequences of altering land use, it cannot escape the topographic impact. As East Calcutta builds up, Calcutta's eastward slope is nullified, the plan behind the drainage system negated. The city's already overloaded drainage system becomes chaotic each monsoon. Can cities grow forever? Must cities grow this way?
Number one is the economic reason. The cost of land in the city itself is very high. And we have got this area from the Calcutta Metropolitan Development Authority at the rate of 8,000 per kata, whereas the cost of land in the city itself will be something around 50,000 per kata. The total cost of the land acquired for this depot is about 3 crore of rupees. If we wanted to have this type of depot inside the city, the cost would have been about 18 to 20 crore.
The basic question facing East Calcutta's villages is whether the eastern bypass will be the limit of urban expansion or a springboard for further growth. While the state government has to implement the urban expansion, it also has to take into account the insecurities of East Calcutta's villages. On June 16, 1988, people in East Calcutta mobilized in unprecedented numbers to mark Wetlands Day. State cabinet ministers came to express their support.
10,000 একর জলাশয় বন্ধ হয়ে গেছে। কলকাতায় বৃষ্টি হলে জল জমে, আমরা অনেক রকম চেষ্টা করছি যাতে কলকাতায় জল না জমানো যায়। যাতে জল বের করে দেওয়া যায়, বৃষ্টি হলে যাতে কলকাতার মানুষকে দুর্ভোগ না পেতে হয়। কিন্তু যতই আমরা চেষ্টা করি না কেন, যদি এই জলাশয়গুলোকে ঠিকমতো আমরা সংরক্ষণ না করি, এই জলাশয়গুলোকে যদি আমরা বন্ধ করে ফেলি, নষ্ট করে ফেলি, তাহলে কলকাতা মহানগরীকে বাঁচানো যাবে না। এই প্রতিটি জলাশয় এই অঞ্চলে সম্পূর্ণ সংরক্ষণ করা উচিত। এই জলাশয়গুলো যেন তার উপর এতটুকু হস্তক্ষেপ না হয়, এটা আমাদের উচিত কাজ মনে হয়।
Can this movement succeed without a clear-cut policy of protecting the wetlands?
In future, this area will be developed. The urbanization process has already started, and the more and more people are coming to this site. So we can serve them also in future if that this area becomes developed and congested.
The question is, how much of the wetlands will go and when? The 800 acres considered most vulnerable to immediate construction include all Nolbon fishery, of which Charnombur accounts for 150 acres.
যে পশ্চিমবঙ্গের মাননীয় অর্থমন্ত্রী অসীম দাশগুপ্ত মহাশয় এবং আরও যারা ছিলেন, সুন্দরবন উন্নয়ন দপ্তরের রাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী রেজাক মোল্লা, তারা এটা বলেছেন যে জলাভূমির প্রয়োজন আছে, এই জলাভূমি রক্ষা করতে হবে। তবে আশ্চর্য হচ্ছে এইটুকু আমরা ভাবতে পারছি না যে কতটুকু রক্ষা করবেন আর কতটুকু নেবেন, এই জায়গায় আমাদের দ্বন্দ্ব আছে।
For Charnombur, the question is confusing and critical. They know how small they are compared to the forces of expansion. They know the prior history of East Calcutta very well.
আমরাও শুনেছি যে বৃহত্তর স্বার্থে এগুলোকে ভরাট করে বাড়িঘর হবে কোঅপারেটিভ বেসিসে। তাই কোঅপারেটিভ হলে বা যে পরিকল্পনা গড়ে উঠবে ভরাট করার পর, সেই পরিকল্পনায় যে ফল বেরিয়ে আসবে, সে ফল আমরা ভোগ করতে পারবো বলে আমার মনে হয় না।
The basic characteristic of all urban expansion is that the people who are displaced are never really rehabilitated. A few may find alternative shelter, but the jobs that are destroyed are rarely replaced. The people displaced by Salt Lake City have got little out of the Salt Lake electronic complex.
এখানে ওই আদিবাসী সম্প্রদায়ের ছেলেপুলেরা, যুবকরা ওখানে কোনো কর্মসংস্থান পাবে এই আমার মনে হয় না। কারণ ওই বিত্তবান ঘরের ছেলেরা ওই আমেরিকান বা অন্যান্য কান্ট্রি থেকে বড় বড় ডিগ্রি নিয়েছে, তারাই সেই সব জায়গায় কর্মসংস্থানের যেসব ইয়েগুলো আছে, আসনগুলো আছে, তারাই পাবে। এখানকার যে স্তিমিরে সেই স্তিমিরেই।
Rehabilitation remains a mirage. Urbanization makes traditional skills obsolete. As their heritage crumbles all around them, young fish farmers take to illegal occupations. The dairy complex on the southern end of the bypass poses questions about what we consider productive. 5 years after it was built, the expensive complex lies unused. A completely unproductive system has replaced a productive system that was perfectly in place. A sewage fed fishery is a carefully designed environment. From the small nursery pond, through mid-sized ponds for fingerlings, to to the large lakes for growing market-ready fish. The graded sequence of ponds holds a lesson about growth proportioned to the environment. The control and treatment of water is the heart of the fish farmer's technology. A sewage-fed fishery is a series of sedimentation tanks that take in raw sewage and, by allowing the solids to biodegrade, converts the fluid into clear, nutritious water. Fisheries use simple, local materials to control their environment, like this technique of dragging the nursery pond to clear it of predators before spawn is released. The basic change is organic. Raking the pond bottom releases the gases generated by bacterial action in decomposing sludge. The nursery is the moment of truth. For here, delicate spawn begin their journey to become fish. The ratio of spawn to plankton and plankton to water must be correctly balanced. The fish farmer depends on his sense of measure and balance. Through years of experience, a fish farmer evolves a way of understanding and measuring his environment by hand, eye, smell, and taste. Scientific tests only confirm his judgment. A sewage-fed fishery is a least-cost, high-profit energy renewal system. Though the plankton generated by the sewage provides most of the nutrition, at times the fish farmer has to add organic supplements. Raising fish by this method means a lot of care. Checking spawn and fingerlings for growth, transferring them from one pond to the next as they grow. Each stage of this care draws on a heritage of techniques that knows how to use available means, expertly bending simple tools to many uses. Three years after its start, there are no doubts about the worth of Charnombu Fish Farmers Co-operative. It employs the men, their mothers, sisters, and wives from over 4 or 5 villages. It is a successful experiment in workers' self-management. The very fact that the cooperative was formed, that the old spirit of cooperation reasserted itself and adapted to changed political and social realities, argues for its potential. You cannot say it is outmoded. But 4 Nombor must go. The State Housing Committee's proposal raises the basic question. Once 4 Nombor and its adjoining fisheries are built on, will Salt Lake City stop? Will urbanization stop?
So that area, as I told you previously, that area comprises of Chinta Singh Bheri, Munshi Bheri and Nalban Bheri and Bheri number 4. Then beyond this, we have, that means the Salt Lake Authority has already acquired about 1 square mile. Beyond this, 783.
বাধা আমরা দেব, কিন্তু প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে কতক্ষণ বাধা দিয়ে রাখতে পারবো, এটাও তো ভাবতে হবে। তবে আমাদের মূল দাবি থাকবে, যদি ভরাট করেই দেয় তাহলে আমরা যোগ্যতা অনুসারে বিকল্প কাজ আমরা দাবি করব, যে শেষ রক্ষা না হয়।
মায়েদের সব ঝিয়ের কাজ করতে হয়, তারপরে বাবারা কেউ কোনো রকম এই জোগাড়ের কাজ করছে, এইসব সল্ট লেগে যেসব নতুন বড় বড় বাড়ি হচ্ছে এইসব বাড়ির জোগাড়ের কাজ করছে। কেন আগে তো এরা কোনো দিন যে অন্য কাজ করে খেতে হবে বলে সেইভাবে ভাবে না, সুতরাং তাদের এই এখন এই জোগাড়ে করে ঝি ভিত্তি করেই খাওয়াতে হয়। তাদের ছেলে মেয়েদের ভবিষ্যৎ আর কী হতে পারে তো পরিষ্কার বোঝাই যাচ্ছে।
Does the future belong only to the city? It is a question of our culture.
ছেলেপুলেদের আর ওই ভেড়ির কাজে দিতে আমার ব্যক্তিগতভাবে আমি তো মত করছি না। কেন এর পরে হয়তো আমরা থাকবো না, হয়তো ছেলেপুলেরা আর সেই কাজটা করতে পারবে না।
Can cities have a future if their survival has to destroy the countryside? Or can city and countryside create the future together?